everybody, today I'm going to chat with you guys about failure to thrive. I got a request to make this video from one of my friends. This topic is kind of personal to my family because Ender was actually diagnosed with failure to thrive at his 6-month well baby visit. If you don't already know, Ender is 17 months now, so this was something that happened in the past. But it's also something that we don't really talk about with anybody. There's all these stigmas around failure to thrive and what that means and what that looks like, and it's something that I've internalized and haven't necessarily kept secret, but it's not something that I openly chat about. And I think that our experience with it could possibly help other people who might be going through the same thing. So I wanted to make this video in hopes that I can give you guys some helpful tips if this is something that you are going through or you know someone who may be going through this. My dogs are being kind of wild today, so they are probably popping their little ears up in the video. I apologize for that, but this is my life. I have dogs. So I actually already sat down and made this video once, and it ended up being like 45 minutes long, which I know nobody wants to listen to me talk for that long. So I'm hoping that this time around I can make a more concise, shorter video for you guys that basically just goes over what failure to thrive is and how this happened to Ender and what we did to correct it. So failure to thrive is when your infant or child falls below the 3rd to 5th percentile for their growth chart. If you have a baby, you'll know that your doctor charts their growth at each appointment, and you get a little curve and they tell you what percentile they're at. Basically that starts at birth. So basically Ender was born in the 30th percentile for weight, and I'm only talking about weight today. I'm not going into height because that hasn't been an issue. So Ender was born at the 30th percentile for weight, and over the first 5 months of life that number always kind of decreased, but he didn't fall off of his growth curve, so the doctors weren't concerned at all. And randomly at 5 months old, we took him in for, gosh, I don't even remember what we took him in for, but his weight had gone down quite a bit and he still wasn't off the chart, but they were a little concerned. So then we followed up at his 6-month well baby visit, and at that time he had gone from, I think it was the 5th percentile to the 0.5 percentile, which is a drastic change. He completely fell off his growth curve. And that is where we got the diagnosis failure to thrive. I think depending on what age and what phase of life your child is in, there are different ways you can approach failure to thrive. So because Ender was about 6 months old, he was just about to start eating solids. So my doctor and my husband and I all just assumed, this will be corrected once he starts eating solids. He will gain weight. But in the meantime, I was also breastfeeding, and so we tried a bunch of different things in regard to breastfeeding. I went to lactation consultants frequently, and we did weighed feedings to see if Ender was actually taking in enough milk. I pumped exclusively for 1 month to make sure that I was actually able to produce enough milk, basically jumping through the hoops to prove to his doctors that breastfeeding was not the problem. So between pumping exclusively and going to these lactation appointments, we did find out that I was putting out enough milk for Ender. My milk was fatty enough. He was taking in the right amount that he needed. But Ender is a super fussy eater. There's a saying, you can't force a baby to eat, and especially with breastfed babies, that is so true. You can't keep them on the boob if they're done. So it was definitely a struggle to get him to eat for long enough amounts of time. I was on a strict feeding schedule with him. Every 2 hours I would breastfeed him. I actually still use this app on my phone. It's called Baby Time. It's this little, let me see if I can get it to focus. It's this orange one here. So it basically just lets you, it basically just lets you time the left and the right side for how many minutes they breastfeed for. Most people actually stop timing their breastfeeding sessions within the first couple weeks of their kid's life, but with Ender I literally still do it because after all we've been through, it's something that just gives me peace of mind knowing where he's at. So if my breastfeeding had been an issue, then we totally would have gone the formula route, and there is a lot more I could talk about on that topic, but I'm not going to go into it today just because I want to keep this video as short as possible. But if you do have questions, definitely reach out, and I'm more than happy to explain myself a little bit more on that and let you guys know why we came to that decision, along with the advice of our doctor. So like I said, we assumed that once he started eating solids, his weight would go up, and so we tried that out for about a month, and we saw not really any improvement with his weight, and that was concerning. We actually started with BLW, baby-led weaning. So BLW is kind of different. It's not the traditional spoon feeding that most of us are used to seeing and hearing about with babies. It's basically where you give your child foods in like finger-length, stick-size pieces, and you let them self-feed. So this is something that we have heard a lot about, and we were super interested in trying it. It's supposed to have all these great benefits for them. So that's just what we did. We did about a month of that, and we didn't see any improvement. And the thing is, baby-led weaning, the slogan for it is food before one is just for fun. So this time is for them to take in a little bit of food just to get the flavors and the textures and learn how to really chew on solids. It's not actually beneficial in terms of giving them more calories. They will learn eventually over the first few months how to swallow and take in more calories, but it takes a while for them to get to that point. So for us, BLW did not work. We talked to a different doctor, and he suggested spoon feeding, which at first we were really hesitant about doing. And, you know, we just realized we have to do something to feed this baby. So we gave in and we did spoon feeding, and he actually really loved it. His weight improved immediately, basically, which was so great. And that worked great for about 3 months. Ender did so good with spoon feeding. And then something just flipped a switch, and he decided no more. He refused to be spoon fed. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing board and do BLW style because he wanted to self-feed. So we start BLW again and let him self-feed, and we see a dramatic drop in his weight yet again. So eventually we get a referral to go to a nutritionist at Seattle Children's Hospital. This is where things really made a dramatic turn for the better. If you have a child who is failure to thrive, I can't recommend a nutritionist enough. She gave us really, really helpful tips that we never would have considered or known had we not gone there. So I'm just so thankful that we were able to do that. So because at this point Ender was totally on board to self-feed, we just needed to figure out the right foods to feed him that were high in calories, high in fat, really good fats for him, things that we just didn't know on our own without this help. Okay, so the nutritionist basically told us, which I think is like a no-brainer to most people, to make his food taste really good. Because Shell and I were eating pretty bland diets at the time, this was like obviously a no-brainer, but something that we weren't doing. So she recommended adding salt, cooking his meat in like a bone broth. So we definitely implemented those. And then she also recommended a yogurt called Koyo. It is a coconut yogurt, and it's super high in fat, which is good fat for him. And he loved that. And so with the yogurt, because he wasn't wanting to be spoon-fed, and at that time he didn't have like all the skills to feed himself with a spoon, and we definitely needed him to be eating, she recommended these pouches. They're called Little Green Pouch. See if I can get it to focus. Sorry for the glare. These are reusable and they are washable. You can put them in the dishwasher, which is great. They unscrew, and then they're small, so a baby can just hold onto it themselves and squeeze the yogurt out. You can put other things in here too, but we just always used it for yogurt. I will put a link to these down below for you guys if you want to try them. They are super great. She also recommended using condensed coconut milk. It comes in a can, and you want to get one that has no added sugar or anything like that. But it's condensed coconut milk, and we actually put that in his fruit, and we let it kind of sit in his fruit and soak up in the fruit, and then he eats that. Some other things were like avocado toast, peanut butter toast. Yeah, so basically all the nutritionist did was give us some really good tips on how to cook his food in a way that makes it tasty and more healthy and give him all the fats that he was missing. So if your baby is much younger than being able to have solids, then I would explore all of the breastfeeding routes that your doctor might want you to do. You can go to lactation. They can do weighed feedings, which is super helpful to know if your baby's actually taking in enough when they're breastfeeding. And then of course the formula route if your child is too young for solids. I have nothing against formula whatsoever. I think if your doctor wants you to do that or you feel more comfortable doing that to get them fed, do whatever you have to do to feed them. At this point with the failure to thrive diagnosis, the most important thing you can do is get food in your baby no matter how that is. So no shame for formula whatsoever. It's just not the route that we chose per our doctor and nutritionist recommendations. A couple other things I want to mention to you guys. I, at one point, was taking Ender to the doctors every single week. Yes, every week for weight checks. And I don't know if you guys feel this way, but lugging a baby around every week back and forth to the doctor's office is not fun. It's not easy between naps, and you're already on a crazy feeding schedule when you're going through something like this. So it's not something that I wanted to continue to do, but I also did want to feel in control and like I knew what was going on with his failure to thrive. So I actually bought a home scale from Amazon, and I can link that below for you guys as well. It was pretty inexpensive for a home scale. You can take it apart and reconfigure it, and it becomes a normal standing scale once your kid is old enough to use something like that. So that's kind of cool. And that just gave me peace of mind. I'm gonna sound crazy saying this, but I actually at one point was weighing him every single day and recording it into a growth chart app. So the other thing I want to tell you guys about is a growth chart app that I found for iPhone. It might be for Android as well, I haven't checked. And this app was super helpful up to a point. So because like I said, I was weighing him every single day, it became kind of an obsession, and that's not healthy. I was stressing and overthinking his weight every single day, every single meal. I was crazy. And to some degree I still am. So I'm going to show you guys the app. It's called Growth. So it looks like this when you open it. You can create a little profile for your babe, and you can put in their height and their weight. And I'm just going to show you guys his growth chart over time, and this is from birth until now. And you can see there are dips where he goes below his, wow, this is really hard to get this to focus. I'm so sorry. So you can see where there's a big dip there. That was around his 5 to 6 month appointment. And there's a few times where he wavers from the chart, from the curve as well. And then if you click on the little dots, it gives you the percentage so you know where they're at. So because Ender is much bigger now and it's a lot harder to get him on the home scale, I kind of just have given up on that, and I weigh him on the normal scale while I'm holding him, and I just deduct my weight once we're done. And I know that's not quite as accurate, but for now that's okay because he's been at a healthy weight and staying on his curve. He does have an appointment coming up. He's supposed to have a 15 to 18 month well baby visit, and I didn't take him at 15 months because, well, for a couple reasons. One, there was a measles outbreak in, not even in our town, but people were freaking out about it, and I just didn't want to bring him to the doctor's office where people might be sick, along with it being flu season. So I didn't bring him in at 15 months. He's now 17 months and has his appointment coming up in May. So after that appointment, I will update you guys and let you know where he's at on his growth chart. I expect him to be somewhere around the 8th percentile because that's what he is right now. If you guys see Ender like in my Instagram or Facebook, you can tell he's at a healthier weight from previous months when he was about 5 and 6 months old. And I don't know how this is for other people. If you've gone through this, let me know. But failure to thrive has really kind of messed me up. I almost have PTSD where his meals are super, super important to me. And if you're a family or friend and we try to make plans, you'll know that I have a very, very difficult time breaking from his schedule and his feedings. And that is because it was traumatizing to go through what we went through. I feel for anybody that might be going through this, and I really, really hope that it gets resolved quickly for you and you can get the help that your baby needs. Failure to thrive can be a really scary diagnosis when you first hear it. It's probably one of every parent's worst nightmares in the beginning. And I just want to tell you guys that there are ways to correct it. You just have to be proactive in treating it. You have to do every little thing that you can to feed them, no matter how you feed them. Babies really generally do grow out of it. I just want people to take comfort in knowing that you are not alone and that there are other moms and dads out there who are going through the same thing. It's kind of something that is not talked about, but it should be, because there's help out there. Like I said, Ender is now in the 8th percentile. He's staying on his curve, which is amazing. Yes, people are probably like, 8th percentile, that's so low. But for us, coming from 0.5 percentile, that is a huge win for us, and our doctors are happy, and Ender is happy and thriving, and that is the best takeaway that I have from this. I also want to say, and I didn't mention this before, but it's important that I tell you this. While we were going through this process, Ender's doctor never really made failure to thrive out to be a big deal. She always just was pretty aloof about it and said, keep doing what you're doing, go get him weighed every week, go see lactation. And this was months and months and months of me jumping through these hoops. And I knew deep down that Ender needed to see a specialist, and I didn't ever speak up about that until he was like 7 months old. I had to advocate for him, and I had to ask to see a nutritionist. This is not something that his doctor ever recommended. This was me fighting for Ender. You have to follow your mom instincts. We have a gut instinct as moms. We just kind of know what our kids need. And I've been guilty of not listening to that gut instinct ever since Ender was a brand new baby. Doctors did things and made decisions for us that I look back on and think, gosh, that was really stupid. That was really irresponsible. I didn't want this to happen, so on and so forth. And so I also just want to say that you really have to be an advocate for your child. If you think there's something wrong, or if you know they're not gaining weight, then you need to speak up and you need to get the help that they deserve. I oftentimes feel very guilty for not seeking help sooner. I listened to his doctor, and like I said, I jumped through her hoops, and I knew that he needed to see a nutritionist. I knew that we needed more help than we were getting, and I let him probably suffer, which is so hard to think of, and it makes me feel really, really bad as a mom. And along this whole journey, I got a lot of people telling me to just give him formula, and that also was hard to hear and hard to deal with and hard to explain our doctor's reasoning for not wanting to give him formula. As moms, we get shamed for almost everything that we do. So having a baby with failure to thrive, I just want you to know, is not your fault, and there are things you can do to correct it, and I hope that all of the babies are being fed. Thank you for listening to this rant in my soapbox about failure to thrive. Like I said, if you have any questions or you want any more like in-depth details about what we've done to correct this, or why we chose to go the routes that we chose to go, I'm more than happy to answer questions for you guys. I just wanted to put this out there because it's something that we as a culture don't really address. And it happened to us, it can happen to anybody. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on your bell notifications. I will see you guys next time.